Hello and welcome to the Sacral Circle, where we are healing sexual trauma collectively and lovingly. I'm your host, Janie Terrazas, and I'll be interviewing women from all walks of life who have had to face a sexual tragedy or abuse in one form or another and triumphed over their adversity. On every episode, a guest will deliver inspirational support, words of comfort, and empowering healing advice. They'll courageously share how their experiences impacted their lives and what led them to face and conquer the blockages that kept them from fully reconnecting to their inner power and divine feminine sacredness. Be sure to subscribe to my podcast, The Sacral Circle. Just search The Sacred Stories on iTunes. To learn more about my coaching and healing services, visit JanieTerrazas.com. I want to thank our listeners for joining us today on the Sacral Circle, the self-love haven where we leave judgment at the door. And today I am with the lovely Vanessa Diaz. She is the founder of Mind, Body, Spirit Healing Center. She is best described as a modern day alchemist, and she is all about promoting self-healing, awareness, and balance so that others can tap into their authentic purpose. Her interest in body work began early as a teen. This naturally progressed into becoming a licensed massage therapist, and she is all about the holistic approach to self-care. Thank you so much for being with us today, Vanessa. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much, Janie, for having me.
Yes. So, it's really interesting because Vanessa and I met, I don't remember, it was 2006 or 2008, but we met when we were in Los Angeles on a job, and we connected. We had sort of like a similar vibe back then, but we have not communicated in years. It's been like over 10 years, I guess. And we reconnected on Facebook, and it was really obvious that we were both on this path of illumination, so to speak. So please tell us about how this all got started. I mean, obviously, you've dealt with trauma, so whatever you are open to sharing, because that's really what this is about. We want to collectively and lovingly start opening up the dialogue around, abuse and sex trauma.
Well, when it comes down to the work that I've been doing and through meditation has evolved, I think meditation's been just one of the main ingredients to this whole process of being able to heal. But with meditation comes its own traumas in a sense, because it, like a beautiful wave of energy, creates all these little locked doors in your mind from that were once closed. It opens them, So having had a deep meditation practice beginning, I started to unblock memories of sexual trauma, and it led me through, the process of healing and doing what I needed to do, and just really got me onto a whole nother level of understanding how deep this kind of work is and the effects of sexual trauma.
Yes. So did you have early experiences, or was your trauma more as an adult?
All of the above.
Okay. Sometimes people experience this type of trauma and then they forget it, right? It's so repressed, and then it starts to kind of like creep up through dreams or just like flashbacks of sorts. For you, was it something that you always remembered?
No, it
Okay.
wasn't. And this is something I'm still exploring and trying to figure out the answers to, because I don't have answers.
Mm-hmm.
All I have is what I'm seeing and feeling and hearing and being triggered by, which and anyone around me doesn't have answers to solidify what I'm seeing and feeling and being triggered to regarding those childhood traumas. So I'm still working those out regarding how to actually heal that, because as someone who works with energy and as an empath, this is one of the bigger things to look at besides healing thyself, is also when you become so open to the truth and the divinity of what is a healing, you do the work yourself, you end up starting to, at least for me, I started to see the work that needed to be done in other people involuntarily.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a nun back in the early 1900s. She called it mystical substitution, where she would actually take on someone's trauma from their energy field, from their spirit or whatever it was, take it into herself, and then go into the church and pray and transmute that energy and that trauma for that person. So this is going really deep, but I guess what I'm trying to say is this process isn't just about healing us, it's about healing everyone. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, actually, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I totally get that. There's a collective sexual wound that has taken place, and women have been the brunt of it for a very long time. And so you're a very deep feeler, like those of us that are these empaths. We can sense the strife and that old pain, and there's this fire and desire to do whatever we can to aid in the ease of that, the healing of that, because it is so important for us to release so that we can really step in and kind of take back that prana, take back that power. So, yeah, yeah. So you had mentioned that you had also dealt with some sex traumas. Explain to us a little bit about what that whole experience was like for you.
In high school, it started with being sexually molested by my best friend's father at 15. Going on a vacation with him, and he so happened to be the sheriff of Dade County, and that got brushed under the rug like nothing.
That's in Florida.
That's in Florida. Yeah. There was that. He actually, we were scuba diving, or I was snorkeling, and the whole trip he had been trying to tell me, oh, show me your boobs or this or that, the other, and I'll buy you scuba gear. He knew I really wanted to become a scuba diver. And I was just like, I was just avoiding him. And I told my friend, I was like, your dad's being really perverted and gross. And I was like, please just stay by me all the time. I was nervous. I was nervous to tell my father because I didn't want my father to go to jail if he ended up like doing something,
Mm-hmm.
So I was caught in this place of trying to protect myself in a dangerous situation while still trying to protect my father from doing something that would put him in a bad situation. So it left me voiceless. So he basically, we were snorkeling, and he held me underwater and he like, I was snorkeling, so I didn't have a breathing mask. He had a breathing mask, and he held me underwater and tried, he stuck his hand, basically, not tried, but he tried to pretty much put his fingers inside of me. Wow. Stuck his hand in my bathing suit, and I couldn't breathe, and he's holding me underwater. And he then stuck the face mask in my mouth so I could breathe and get a breath. So I took a giant breath, and I kicked off of him and went to the top of the water, and I was just hysterical, So that was that. And when I mentioned it to the wife is like, oh, let's not say anything to anybody, So when I mentioned it to the sister, the older sister, she got really upset because apparently he was doing this more than we would like to believe.
Right.
So that was that. Then there was also, just things in school, high school kids, spreading lies or trying to, whether it's roofie you or this or that, the other, and, then spreading lies of situations and who you are. And I was the slut because I was the pretty girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was a pretty girl, but yeah, I was a virgin and, labeled as a slut. And so those kind of sexual,
labels
and that just they start to tear a young girl down and inhibit the ability to grow as a woman in a place of strength in her sexuality. And of course, once you have one situation like that, it's very common to have multiples. So of course I got into abusive relationships, and even if you're in a quote unquote relationship and someone's forcing you to have sex with them, mm-hmm. that's still not considered rape. People are like, oh, but it was your boyfriend. But no, I said no.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean. Exactly.
No is no. Doesn't matter what relationship you're in. Doesn't matter if that's your husband or your wife or whatever the situation, because this stuff happens to men and women.
I agree.
And it doesn't matter. No is no. And whether you're in a relationship or not, that's still, doesn't make an excuse for that kind of forced situation,
Right.
So anyway, getting through many situations like this, I finally got to the point where I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to just stay away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stay away, and I'm going to resolve everything that happened back from the back until now, from the past to now. And once I get to that place where I know those things are resolved, I know that I'll be able to enter into a relationship that I will be able to discern that this is the right person to share my body with. And I will be able to be strong enough because I've done the work and I've somatically released, like you talk about, those deep bellowing cries that are just like from the depths of your soul, because you're not just crying for you, you're crying for the consciousness of women that have been abused and raped for centuries.
Yes.
You know, so I took a vow of celibacy for myself, and that was, I think, probably the best thing I've ever done in my entire life. It really empowered me to understand myself in a better way, to not fill myself or my auric space with anything else except for the stuff I want to put in it.
Mm-hmm.
And no orgasm that any other person could give me was better than mine anyways. So doing that is one thing. And then there came a time where I went in from, celibacy, meaning not sharing myself with anybody else, but also to the point where I went and I didn't even have an orgasm. So I've gone through a 100-day period of no orgasms. And I learned how to channel that energy and just restore and refill my prana, my chi in my body, and learn how to distribute it to different areas so that I could create a healing of a wound, and so that if I did channel in with a client, I could deliver a surplus of energy because I was overflowing.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful way to put it. That's the first time, and I'm sure other women have done it, but it's the first time I've met someone who was talking about the 100 days without an orgasm and how you can use that to replenish your own self and your energy. You never really think about that, you know what I mean, in that way. And you'd also mention about being very like discerning and being particular about who you allow into your space, especially intimately, because of your auric field. So explain that a little bit to people about what happens when we allow a person into us in this way, and what kind of leftover residual is left behind.
Okay, well, let's look at it like a color palette, like a painting palette. So here you have your energy spirit, the field of energy that is around you, which vibrates at a certain frequency, and it changes within conversation, even because I'm able to see the aura, and I can see people when they talk about certain things. Their color changes based on what power center, what chakra they're tapping into.
Yes.
So it's constantly changing, but there's definitely there's a base personality kind of color, I guess you can say, for the most part. And that changes when you do the healing work too. I actually did aura photos throughout my massage therapy school and watched my aura completely transform after doing after going through several healing crises. So if we look at the auric space, your auric field, like a color palette, let's say you vibrate in purple. Okay, let's say you're vibrating in the crown chakra color,
right.
And you meet someone, and let's say they vibrate, and within there, and you're like totally clear because you're doing the work, and you're like working, and you're getting really
mindful,
solid to your purpose and mindful, and now you're bringing in someone else who, let's say, there's a super big physical, let's say there's a physical and a sexual attraction, right? And then this person is vibrating with a lot of, let's say they had some abandonment and maybe even sexual trauma in their life that they haven't dealt with. So, they may be up there, and let's say they vibrate in a bright yellow color, coming from their power place because they're survivors, coming from their solar plexus, right? And so now you're blending these two colors, but yet that yellow is dingy because it hasn't been cleared of the traumas. That yellow may have like entanglements of energy and history, like a reel of tape, a film that sits there and that's affecting the physical body. Let's say it's affecting a particular organ system or something of that sort. But so now you're mixing these two colors together, and it's really not making a pretty, like, oh, this
It's
doesn't really
dingy.
like, it's like a little bit of a dirty color. It's kind of earthy. It's kind of like dirt, and you're like,
Yeah.
well, okay, so what's in it in dirt that is good, or bad, or is there good or bad, or like how do we make that work? And I guess if it becomes dingy and brown, and the colors, just because there's black, I personally see them like black tumbleweeds, the traumas.
Yeah.
And so let's say all this black is coming in there. It's like those are very
Heavy.
very
toxic.
heavy and guttural things that need to be resolved. And how do you get to that? You start by grounding. And how do you ground? It's like, I mean, you would have to be able to be willing to keep a healthy boundary between you and this person, not share space in that intimate, in a physically intimate manner, but with a good boundary. And if this person's worthy of bringing into your space and for a relationship, and they're willing to do the work, then you start from the ground, because that's what needs to be dealt with. You start from the ground up, because if you can't heal that root chakra, you're never going to get to the sacral. You're never going to get to your true power. You're never going to come from love in your heart chakra. Right. So it's like that building of the pyramid from the root base up.
Right.
I kind of visualize, the way I understand the masculine, meaning the male, and the female, as like men come very grounded to earth. They're the protectors. They're the survivors. They're very simplistic and carnal and in flesh, and like it's very animalistic. And that's very much from Muladhara. That's from your lower chakra, right? And women, we are the bridges for life. So we come connected from the crown, from above down. And the true union happens when the man has been able to heal the root, heal the sacral, heal the solar, and come into his heart. And mind you, pun intended, come into his heart. Okay? Not into the ground, but basically you are using your essence, your ejaculation as a man for love, for the divinity, not for just simple carnal orgasm.
Yes.
I mean,
there's a big difference.
A whole nother ballgame when it comes to sex. So basically looking at that, and then having women come down from the heavens and come into their heart and meet in the center, in the heart, with that grounding of that masculine. And that's where the light of love really happens, is that meeting in the center, in that heart space.
Yes.
So, we came from talking about like sharing auric space, but like I believe you have to share it with somebody who's willing to do the work and willing to surrender, be vulnerable, and because you're going to have to do a lot of clearing and cleansing to maintain yourself while dealing with somebody who's doing their process too.
Yes, and I have been in that situation before, where and it's really, it causes a lot of strain on you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So it's best to like what you said, view your body and yourself as something sacred. And for those of us that have dealt with trauma, some of us get really detached from our sensuality and our sexuality, and we shut it off completely. And then there's others that go on the other spectrum, right, where they're like extremely promiscuous. And I don't judge either, because it all affects us in different ways. But our sexual prowess and our sensuality in that center, the sacral, that's why I call this the sacral circle, because it's so important for us to heal this area, because that's also part of our energy, and sexuality and creativity. They all sort of go hand in hand. And so when there are blockages, and when we are disconnected for whatever reason, it robs us of our radiance. And if you are doing the work and then you're letting a man come into your space, it's like you said, you're having to do extra work. And this is already hard enough as it is.
Yeah, that's exactly why I say you really need to resolve yourself. Like, these, we talked briefly on a personal level the other day about, polyamory. And mind you, I love free love. Yes, it's beautiful. But this work that it takes to completely get into a space where you can function at your spiritual soul purpose level is a lot of self-work. And to be able to add all these other energies into your field and not think that they're going to affect you and affect the work that you're doing in a way that is not going to make it as conducive to a rapid transformation as it would be if you were a little bit more precautious about who you bring around, you know?
Yes.
And having healthy boundaries. So that's why I think if you can manage to create an awesome self-loving relationship with yourself and know how to clear stuff, like within moments, when it comes up, clear it. When it comes up, clear it. And whether it be an argument or this or that, like look into it. Where is this coming from? Clear it. You know, and when you get into that practice, you become like Superwoman, you know, you can,
it's true.
You can get to anything. And now, like, let's say you introduce one special person. Now, not only are you clearing it for yourself, but this special person, because there are no mistakes,
right,
is there to now make you work harder on yourself, because they're going to be a reflection for the things that you need to heal, because that's what love does.
Yes. Ultimately, what this healing journey is all about is being able to evolve and grow and learn and be merciful over our past mistakes or those that have like trespassed against us. And have you discovered that the more you share your story, it's also helped you heal just your own self?
Absolutely, because you're scratching at an old wound, and you know, if you're compassionate with yourself and you can go back into the history of the wound, you can feel what it's like, but you look at it like, oh, that little girl, or that someone you used to be. There's this separation almost when you heal a situation where it's just not part of you. It's just like a chapter that you've already read, but the link, the anchor of the emotion is not necessarily there to affect you personally, but to look at it with compassion and empathy for as though it was someone else.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what were some of the things? I know meditation is really big for you. I'm guessing because you became a massage therapist that you probably also got massages, but what were some of the other things that you realized assisted you through your transmutation?
I was doing a lot of hydrotherapy ritual work in the water, using essential oils, crystals, drumming, chanting, and toning. And those things were profound. When I started doing, it's so funny, I ended up with my phone in the tub, you know, like, because I come from a musical background. I toured with my music throughout the country and did different things with that. So I have a tuner on my phone. And so when I started chanting certain notes, I would use my tuner and wonder, because I was able to still kind of work it as an observer as well as an actual practitioner and a patient. But I would get the tuner and figure out, well, what note is this? And then I'd correlate it to a particular chakra, because each chakra has a different note.
Yes.
And what I got into even deeper is that each organ vibrates at a different frequency. So really just out of curiosity, I was doing those things. So that's what got me into the sound therapy, because what I used to use and write for music was a healing remedy for me. I used to write music, and I've written as a child poetry since I can't even remember, since I was 6-7 years old.
Yes.
And for me, after a while, the music and the lyrics became venomous, because what was once cathartic then became poisonous, because it's like you've already shifted, you've already transmuted that energy, and now you're still trying to stay back there. So for me, the toning and chanting provided me the vowel sounds, and it would allow me to escape from the monkey mind of words, and just go straight into tone and vibration, which is what we're all made of. And that was the most healing. And then I started doing some drumming on my body. So body drumming was, which were basically stimulating meridians and moving my chi around. That was
Mm-hmm.
super powerful. And then obviously using high vibrational oils and crystals, uh, purifying them with intention of whatever I wanted to do. But that was really big for me in the process before and during massage school. And then I learned other modalities, and they all affected me in different ways, and they all opened me up in different ways. Shirodara is absolutely amazing. It's from India, where you pour in Ayurveda, where you pour the warm oil based on your dosha on your third eye,
Mm-hmm.
and just it's so grounding, and it takes you on a literal vision quest.
Oh,
It is
that's so
amazing.
awesome.
And because it opens your third eye, I had so much information coming to me, and it was just so profound. It's one of my favorite therapies of all time. There are just various things. I'm actually
Yeah.
getting into. I'm doing a cranial sacral training, so tapping into your different body rhythms, because there are, I think, 28 or 30 something different rhythms within your body, besides your breath, besides your heartbeat. There are
Yes.
other rhythms. So I guess this all stems from my music background, and just being able to tap into those things as I laid in the water, and
Yes.
and feel rhythms of all different layers all happening at once. I was like, oh boy. And then I found out about cranial sacral, and that's what they focus on. I was like, well, that's where I'm going.
And I can again relate to you in so many different ways because I use so many different forms of healing on myself. And there was a lot of that water tub work and a lot of that intuitive guidance of like humming, and putting your ears under the water and feeling and hearing your breath in a way that you can't when you're not suspended underwater, and
Mhm.
going through, you were talking about the chakras all and the organs, and they each carry this frequency. I believe it's like through our center, it's basically like do re mi fa sol la ti do. And so I would kind of go through the do re mi like while I was underwater, and it's so relaxing. Oh my God, how awesome and how fortunate. But understanding music in the way that you do actually has benefited you as a healer too, because everything truly is about harmonics. And when you start to learn all this stuff about how the body works and how the vessel truly is like this instrument, it's an instrument. And I love the visual you had with the black sort of charcoaly tumbleweeds. And I always like to use like dirty cotton balls, as an example too. It's imagine these dirty cotton balls of these past experiences that are not allowing your systems to like flow freely.
And this whole thing that's coming up with the I Have and the Me Too is such a beautiful platform to shine a light on the wounds that are ready to be healed. Everything from, I guess it's been almost a year and a half or so from grabbing by the pussy. That was a catalyst for women to speak up and say that is not okay.
Yeah.
This whole movement right now is huge, and it's so needed. And it's not just in Hollywood. I mean, I've been in the music industry since my early 20s, and that it goes there. If it's not who you know, it's who you blow, and that's a real, true story.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing either. I wasn't going to compromise myself, or my music, or what I wanted to say through my music, just to get a deal with somebody, or sleep with somebody just to get a deal. And it's like, to me, there's no deal worth signing that is at the sacrifice of my integrity.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I lived in LA for about 11 years, and there's still a level of like just the typical harassment that you kind of have to deal with where they're not necessarily putting their hands on you. It's just kind of words here and there. They manipulate, and so we have to learn how to create healthy boundaries and learn when to speak up. There were so many times because I lost my voice when I was a little kid because of my trauma, and when men would do stuff like that, it was like in my head I could hear all the things that I wanted to say, but it was like I was paralyzed. My vocal cords were literally like freeze up. And I just felt like,
Mm.
like when somebody would say or do something and you're like, this is not cool or this is inappropriate. And then you don't say anything, even in those little moments. And we all collectively need to do our part, right, to fix this. And it's also a lot that we have to do to help the men because it's a cultural sickness of the psyche that men have, and all the objectification of women and all the stuff is just like been bombarding us for so long. And so it's going to be
Right.
a process, but every woman that takes her power back and chooses to love herself and find those people and the things that are going to help her get through her own experiences that are robbing her of all of her own self, then that's why I do this show. It's like we want to encourage you to speak out, and eventually you could get to a place where you feel comfortable sharing your story with somebody who's been in the same place, and you'll be of service to them. I feel like all of us can like be of service in one way or another, especially when it comes to this particular subject matter.
Yeah, and it's, it's everywhere. Like you said, it's not even, it's a sickness in the culture. It's an illness in throughout generations, because one person does it and then they hold that. And, when you get into really, really deep work with, and you start to be able to tap into genetic memory, and then you realize that, some of the things you are suffering aren't your healing, but your parents or your grandparents that you're healing. It really, it runs very, very deep.
Yeah.
And it's a huge process and undertaking, but one that is absolutely necessary for us to get to a place where equality and equity does thrive.
Yes, where it's like the norm. It's the norm. It's not something we have to fight for. It's just like
Right.
the standard way of living and being. Thank you so much. Oh my God, there's just so much that we could talk about when it comes to all of this. I wanna remind people again. Please tell them about your services and where they can get in contact with you.
Definitely. So I am on Facebook, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show. You can find me under Mind, Body, Spirit Healing Center, and the website is that as well. And I can, if you're not in town, I can always do virtual coaching through. I love doing EFT tapping. The emotional freedom techniques is really a wonderful way. I actually just posted a blog about it today or yesterday, about EFT and how I can help you coach through certain traumas. But all this can be done virtually as well. We can connect. I can guide you through the process of tapping and coach you through whatever particular topic or trauma that you want to go through and release. And then you get to do it once, and you can do it multiple times if you'd like. But the first time you get it, you always now have those tools and that process in your pocket to go home, create a beautiful sacred space for yourself, light a few candles, sage yourself in the room, and just say, okay, this is my intention for this session, and go in and do it on your own. So I want to empower people to know how to do these things on a regular basis, so that way when things do get triggered and come up, you can just address it, knock it out, get it done. So that, obviously, if you're in the Palm Beach County area, I do in-home calls and services for various modalities. You can find me on mindbodyspirithealingcenter.com, and my email is up there. My phone number, 561-510-1080. And I'd be happy and humbled to serve.
Thank you so much. You are officially part of the sisterhood here at the Sacral Circle. So thank you again for all of your beautiful sage advice. And thank you to our beautiful listeners for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the Sacred Stories podcast on iTunes, where you'll find other impactful, inspiring shows. Connect with me via our social media pages. You'll find us at the Sacral Circle. Your shares and likes are greatly appreciated because they help spread the love. If you have any questions about my coaching and healing services, visit my website at JanieTerrazas.com. As we say goodbye, always remember to know your worth and continue to love and value yourself wholeheartedly. Peace be with you.